my name is Ryan Carrasco. I'm a philosophy student here at UVU. I'm hoping to graduate this December. I'm really excited to be able to revisit the allegory of Plato's Cave for this class assignment. This allegory is important not only for Plato's concepts of the ideals and forms and Greek idealism, but also for the structure of government and what the Platonic philosophers thought about human nature. I'll start out here with what he was talking about. If you're reading the allegory, you'll see that he had a number of people, which I'm just going to draw poorly here, chained up, looking at a wall. So you can see poorly drawn people, poorly drawn wall. They were chained, could not look at each other, could not look around, they could not get up. All they had behind them was a large fire. Okay, we're going to call that the fire. So this fire is casting light. All they can see is the shadows of the things that are passing here between them and the fire that are being cast upon the wall here. So if a person is walking by the fire and they're carrying a box, what they see is some shadow of a thing like that. So not an exact representation, but what they're seeing is the shadow of an object that's lost a lot of its dimension and form. They can't do anything really but try to predict what the shadows mean, or what they are, or what direction it's going to come from. They gain notoriety amongst themselves as they try to argue the patterns and things of the shadows that are coming up. So this, in Plato's view, is kind of the natural human, the natural person in their natural environment, trying to fight for things that aren't necessarily important or even real.
2, 3, go.
So this is the state of the common person in Plato's view. Now, it's important to note that at one point, one of these people who is shown a gift for distinguishing what is and is not real, or at least for interpreting what these shadows might mean, is unshackled and dragged out of the cave into the real sunlight. And I think it's important that this person is dragged. If this is all that you know, if your entire life, and especially if this is someone who's been good at it, has been based around trying to figure out what these shadows are, being forced into some new experience, seeing the fire for the first time, it would be painful to your eyes. Being dragged out of the cave, seeing other people, recognizing your own anatomy beyond what just your view was, being forced into the natural sunlight is a painful experience. This person who's being exposed for the first time to real light, not the darkness of the cave or the shadows or any of those things, what they see is, one, the brightness of the sun. Okay, there's my kindergarten drawing of a sun. They're going to see things that are reflected from trees. They're going to see shadows. They're going to see, here's a poorly drawn animal for you. It's a happy animal, whatever that is. So they're seeing reality for the first time. This poor person who was locked in the cave, now they're forced to deal with all of this. The truth of reality, where the things get light from. And as Plato explains, first it's going to be painful. They would only really be able to make out shadow and light at first, and then they would be able to make out reflections of things. Then they would be able to actually make out the doings of people that might live here, animals that might live here, how life goes, and eventually, looking upon the bright light of the sun. And all these things gradually more painful, but as time comes on, they're better capable of understanding it. Now this is representative of Plato's forms. See, the sun would be the good. It is the source of all ideals. It is the source of all light, knowledge, truth, as they actually are. And all these things that he's seeing that are being illuminated by the sun, or finding truth from the good, are going to be the ideals, the absolute forms of the perfection of some of the higher thoughts, things like math or physics, seeing concepts, the truth of justice, the truth of beauty, the truth of what it is to be good or human. These are going to be the forms, the ideals. These are the highest concepts for Plato. Now, when this person who is being exposed to this is able to look and find the patterns and recognize how the world actually works, how the seasons change based on the heat of the sun and how people react to that, this person, when brought back down to the cave, would, one, probably not want to go back. They would be very sad knowing that they had spent so much of their life down in that darkness. At the same time, this person trying to communicate all of this newfound knowledge to the people that this person was formerly chained up next to would probably find a lot of adversity. In fact, Plato says that they would probably try to kill this person when he came back trying to explain the things that had been revealed to him. This is kind of Plato's example of what it means to be, an educated person, someone who has been habituated to higher forms of thought, not getting caught up in the meaninglessness of, trying to predict shadows, but actually trying to figure out what it means to be alive, to be real, to actually dedicate yourself to this actual truth, the ideals, the forms. This person would probably try to educate the other people and would probably find a lot of conflict, or as Plato says, death for it. So this person, the one that was exposed to the forms, exposed to the truth, exposed to the ideals, the person who had been habituated, educated, and allowed access to the actual way that the world is, almost on a metaphysical, a transcendent level, this person, according to Plato, is the one who should govern. This is the one who is not getting caught up in trying to figure out what the shadows mean, trying to compete with the other metaphorical prisoners, but this is the person trying to dedicate themselves to finding absolute truth, which is accessible through education and habituation. This reveals something about what Plato thinks about governance. There's an important quote, I'll just read it here. The truth is that you can have a well-governed society only if you can discover for your future rulers a better way of life than being in office. Then only will power be in the hands of men who are rich, not in gold, but in wealth that brings happiness, a good and a wise life. All goes wrong when, starved for lack of anything good in their own lives, men turn to public affairs, hoping to snatch from thence the happiness they hunger for. So this is important. In trying to establish what would be an ideal republic, this is an allegory that Plato, through Socrates, is using to explain to his friends. A lot of people, if they were taken from the cave, in Plato's view, and exposed to the real world, would reject it, would not be able to comprehend it, would fight over it, would prefer the life in the cave. This is something that is reserved for those who are capable of comprehending these truths, people who are capable of allowing their minds to comprehend this. These are the philosophers. And in this way, this is why people say that Plato's Republic is arguing for a philosopher king. Someone who has wisdom and is willing to use that wisdom for things that are actually important. Not getting caught up in what shadow is going to come next, or what shape is that shadow, or trying to compete with each other over these things that are, in the grand scheme, meaningless. But for those in the cave, that's all that matters. Another thing is that Plato did not like the idea of democracy, because in Plato's view, those people in the cave are the ones that are being given the right to vote over things like this, which should be important. The philosophers, the ones who are educated, the ones who can gain access to these things, these important things, actual justice, actual beauty, actual truth. These people are heavily outnumbered by those in the cave. Too many people find solace and comfort in that cave. So this is important. It seems like an extremely elitist view. For one, for our sensibilities that we're so egalitarian and everyone, especially this American dream, everyone can make themselves into something greater. All of us want to be this person who's able to escape the cave and see the truth and build for themselves this perfect world in which they can operate at a full and absolute level. But for Plato, not everyone can do that. For Plato, not everyone should do that. They're not great at it. For a lot of people, they're going to misinterpret this, or they're going to just reject the truth of it, calling this absolute truth fake news, if you will. Which is why Plato was saying that these people, this select class of people, those who are capable of understanding truths, not in a competitive way, but in an honest, wise, and soul-searching way, these are the ones who should be governing. It tells us a lot about what Plato looks for in a government, because what they're looking for is people in authority who can govern based on the best wisdom and truth and justice, but also that it doesn't think a whole lot of people. Generally, Plato describes democracy as a bad idea because it's governed by those who do not have or don't want to accept the wisdom of the forms. People who would not want to see the light of day for the good that it is, but would rather stay competing with each other in the cave with the shadows. So this is Plato's allegory of the cave. It's representative not only of classic Greek philosophy, but also of their concepts on humanity and their concepts on governance. And I think it's very important for all of us, especially now, to allow ourselves to be the ones that are let out of the caves, even if others might reject us for it. Thank you.